Alrighty, so one thing I like to do every so often is point out something that I know will piss somebody off because I derive personal enjoyment from it. Mostly because the other person is a power hungry, money hungry individual who doesn't have any empathy or compassion, thinks that human beings exist solely for them. They can't have their own goals, their own dreams. They just need to adopt a role. And so, what I'm going to be doing today is kind of outlining why all of this stuff, even the stuff, even the Project 2025 agenda, none of this is going to significantly raise the birth rate in the United States. It's done. Uh, if you need a tissue, if you need to cry, I could probably supply you with some, but I don't want to. My family member has allergies, so they're going to need the box. You'll have to find some, maybe you can use your shirt. But no, it's not going to work. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter whether you ban abortion, you could ban abortion and contraceptives. You could do both of these things, and it will still not drive up the birth rate. Why? Because it's the birth rate is not driven solely by one factor. It's not driven necessarily by even feminism, which some people will allege that's the case, that women having higher education is somehow lowering the birth rate. No. The reason why the birth rate is so low is because people can't afford to have children. And there's a little secret that these far-right Christian nationalists don't really know because they're brainwashed and delusional, and they live in an alternate reality where facts don't matter. They are shown regularly engaging in conspiracy theories regarding the world's scientists, especially on stuff like global warming. So clearly they don't care about the science unless it bolsters their power somehow. When it does that, and only that, oh yeah, I love you. But the second it doesn't, whenever it conflicts with their interests, all of a sudden, it's got to be a fucking conspiracy. Wow. No. If you go on any news, any feed, any comment section on on any news video that talks about low birth rates or financial situations that people are in, you will keep seeing these stories from both men and women, which says, I can't, I'm working a job, but if I paid rent, it would take 50% of my paycheck. I wouldn't be able to save enough money to buy my own home someday. There's some people who stay at home because it's simply more economically viable. And then you have to think about the fact that homes, according to people, what I've been hearing on the internet, they cost $500,000 as a starting bid. Who has that kind of money to piss away? And then you think about all the other costs of living that are involved. You think about owning a vehicle, having all this other stuff. The simple reality of what's going on today is that human beings, and I said this is the secret that they don't know, is that most human beings are not going to be strictly evil or good. If you've ever seen a gradient scale, it's something you can find in an art class. A gradient scale will show you something from darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest. Most human beings are not at the top of the scale or at the bottom scale, or if you're doing horizontal, they're not on the far left, they're not on the far right. Most human beings are right fucking there in the middle, or a little bit off to the left or a little bit off to the right. It's very rare when a human being is strictly good or bad. Most human beings, in my experience, are self-centered. They're motivated by what will enrich their own self-interest. So, for instance, they will look at their own situation and go, okay, well, I'd really like a baby or a child, but I simply can't afford it. Right? And no matter what you do to men and women in this country, Men are not just going to magically adopt your agenda just because you want them to pump out more units to run your machines and to keep your economy and your system going. Because they all have things they want, and some of those things, shocker, shocker, don't include producing children. That's exactly what's going on in day-to-day life. The average man and woman is self-centered. You don't, and this really should just be common sense. Maybe some people are just so they've consumed too much propaganda on television. They've taken everything that they've seen in the media way too seriously, and they think, oh well, this is just the way people are. There's got to be some truth to this, right? No, it's none of it. None of it can be true. Human beings are not necessarily reflections of the art that you consume. They're not even reflections of what you see on your television programs, what you're seeing in the heat of the moment. People are way more complicated than that. So this notion, this idea that, well, if we just take away these two things, it's going to solve all our problems and just magically boost the birth rate up so significantly that it'll make a difference. Have there been children born as a result of abortion bans in different states? Yes. Is it significant enough to overcome the massive decline in birth rates? No. It's not going to do that. Because human beings are not going to base their decision on what's good for the country. No matter what they say, no matter even if they tell you they're a hardcore MAGA or whatever, you are not going to base your decision on that. You're going to base your decision on what's good for you. No bullshit. Don't fucking lie to me. You will go over your bills and you will see if you can include a baby in that. And if you can't, you're not going to do it. I get so sick of this shit. They want to blame women for everything, or they want to blame this for everything. No, it's the economy. If the economy is shit, people are going to act fiscally conservative. Why? Because you put it in your fucking media. And I don't want to hear this shit. I don't want to hear any excuses from these people. This is reality. You get conflicting messages from your family and friends to what society tells you, right? So your family and friends may want to tell you, hey, I think you should just have kids and settle down or whatever. But then you'll have other people going, sometimes you'll see a Hollywood celebrity think, hey, I want to be a celebrity, or hey, I want to make money, or I want to be in the middle class or whatever. But in order to do those things, it often requires discipline and sacrifice. And not all jobs are pay equal. Some pay more, some pay less. So unless you have a really, really good job that pays you a ton of money, you are probably not going to make it to the upper echelon of the middle class or enter into what we consider the wealthy domain of society. Sorry, not domain, but the wealthy tier, where you are officially considered rich. So if there are contradictory messages, if people are being told, you need to pursue your dreams, son, it is good for you. Well, if you do that, well, can you pursue your dreams and have everything else at the same time? Most Americans are acting fiscally conservative because they've come to the conclusion that the system is inherently hostile towards their desire to pursue their dreams or their personal goals. People are not turning away from family values or whatever because they inherently hate the idea of a family, especially with kids or whatever. They're turning away from that because they see it as an expenditure, as something. They take one look at it and go, oh, kid costs this much? Oh, fuck no. And you don't have to take my word for it. Talk to any average American who's not brainwashed or in a cult. They'll tell you. They'll be like, nah, I ain't doing this shit. Maybe adopt someday, but I'm not down with this. I want to be able to get my master's degree, or I want to be a professor, or whatever they're doing, or hey, I want to run my small business. But in order to do these things, especially with the way the economy is, you have to be careful. You have to think everything through So we could honestly just stop right here, and this would be the end of it. This would literally end everything. This would end this entire project. We don't really need to go any further because these people in Project 2025, they're not going to fucking fix the economy. They're not fixing shit. Every president keeps adding to the debt. They're not saving anything. And if your plan is to cut social service programs, well, yeah, you're saving a little bit of money here and there if you're just looking at this through a budget lens. But you're not thinking about the rest of it, which is the problem isn't just one or two things. The problem is the cumulative spending. So getting rid of like one or two programs isn't really going to make that much of a difference at this point. Maybe at least financially it would have made a difference 20 or 30 years ago, but when you rack on this much debt, you can't just wipe it all away. And I always get the feeling that people are just trying to wipe the debt away any way they can. They personally decide too which programs they think need to be invested in. And if they don't personally feel like it's needed, then they're not going to do it. Are these people going to make cuts to the military too? Well, what happens if you need that military? Like, say, whenever you're trying to kill violent protesters. See, that's the problem. It's, again, this kind of thinking of, we need to do this, the birth rates will go up. No, they won't. They're actually going to go down. And it's going to be in large part because this is the thing that these people never will understand. As long as they live, they are hopelessly blind and ignorant. This is not the 1950s anymore. In the 1950s, we did not have cell phones or video games or access to all of these television channels. You think that doesn't matter? You are wrong. You are dead wrong. So we've already covered the first one, which is people are going to be fiscally conservative when they are in the pursuit of their own interests. And that may include children, but most of the time what we're finding out lately is no, it doesn't include them. So this is primarily an economic issue. This isn't necessarily an issue concerning one particular socioeconomic group or political group, as some would allege. It's more complicated than that. The next thing we have to deal with here is the second thing that people just don't appreciate, and I've heard they think banning porn is going to do it. What banning porn is going to do, unfortunately, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not going to ascribe a moral value to it. What I will tell you, though, is that you better be ready to face a lot of violent, angry men. If you attempt to ban pornography in all 50 states, I can promise you, good or bad, regardless of how you want to judge that decision, men will lash out. And the reason is because porn is an addiction. And if you just cut off somebody's supply, whatever they're addicted to, in a heartbeat, if you don't try to wean them off of it, it could and likely will backfire in your fucking face. And also it could affect the general public as well, when these individuals start trying to find some sort of substitute. This is part of the problem with these policies that they're proposing. They don't want to think about the social consequences or even the consequences for the society itself. They just see what they want and they think that's going to magically solve all their problems. No, it won't. People still have access to shows like Netflix and Prime Video for very inexpensive prices. You can get Netflix